it's close to the American base, but it's a really nice neighborhood. It's an upscale neighborhood. It's like a hangout.
I'm trying to
really?
What was it? What?
United Arab Emirates. Somebody there local said UAE was just hit. I'm trying to get exact information, but so I was trying to see if it's Dubai, Abu Dhabi, or what. I mean, oh shit, what's that base? What's that air base?
Al Udeid?
No, not IUD. That's Qatar. Oh my God, I'm drawing a blank. The base in UAE.
Oh, I don't remember.
Al Dhafra Air Base. Al Dhafra Air Base. There's a U.S. military base there. It's called Al Dhafra. A lot of guys deployed to the Middle East have been there. There's a base there. So if UAE that's attacked, that's where we're doing it. Oh, wait. What's going on? What is this? Okay, U.S. Navy. Yeah. Okay. No, that's nothing new. So Navstan, yeah. But we're also getting reports that possibly UAE is getting hit. We'll try to get more additional information on that.
So this is interesting. I mean, if we're talking about pretty much every Gulf state right now except Saudi Arabia, you just got hit. What kind of reaction are the Iranians expecting from this? Sit up to you.
Sorry, I was talking. I was mute.
I'm saying like pretty much every Gulf state just got hit.
Yeah, the reason why they're doing this is because they don't. If it's regime change, there's only one way they can cause pain.
Just Sitrap, Kuwait have been struck. Kuwait, there is a strike, ongoing strikes on Kuwait.
Okay, I just got to make sure, James. Are we 1,000,000% confirmed? Because I remember the 12-day war at the beginning. Everything. I mean, back when we saw the video, everything was getting hit. Is Kuwait confirmed also hit?
There's alarm. Sorry, there's alarm. There's no confirmation yet. Per se.
I'm seeing reports of Kuwait getting hit too.
Right. So again, these are two pieces, right? One, there's two ways to analyze this. Either this is a coordinated attack that is being directed at top, and it makes sense if it was, because if it's regime change, this was how Iran was going to respond. Again, I've dealt with the Iranian ballistic missile program. Like this is what was expected. That's why these U.S. and Israel are doing this, right? It's just strike everywhere around the region. Or number two, which we don't know, is if this isn't coordinated, and it's just basically independent units within the ballistic missile force are just panicking and just blindly firing missiles without a command element able to do it. We don't know the answer to that.
We don't know, but most likely they don't have communication, but they do have pre-planned orders.
That's why I said at the beginning with Craig way back then.
Sorry, Sitrap. Reuters confirmed a huge explosion in Abu Dhabi. That's the headline.
Okay, so UAE is there, and I think Abu Dhabi is where Al Dhafra Air Base is located. So that's probably, I wonder if that's what was the focus.
Yep. It's going to be a long night.
Long night, dude. It's going to be a long week, month. Come on. It's already been long. I've been covering cartels last week and doing this. Let's go. This is just the reality of the ground. I mean, we're seeing U.S. embassies in Amman, Jordan, I'm not even going to list all the countries. Every single U.S. embassy in the region has already announced shelter-in-place orders. That's number one. We have seen that. Qatar airspace has been closed. Now we got that from my sit rep. We also have, let me see what else. I'm trying to make sure. No, there's nothing there. Kuwait has been targeted. It appears Bahrain has been targeted. Qatar, UAE. So, and now we're getting more waves of strikes inside of Iran. This is the one.
They're also claiming they're targeting the Fifth Fleet, but I don't know.
Well, the Fifth Fleet is the naval base. The Fifth Fleet is the naval base in Bahrain. That's Navstan. U.S. Naval Central is the Fifth Fleet. So that naval base is the headquarters. That's why when everybody was saying the evacuation of Bahrain matters, because that's Navstan. I'm telling you right now, I'd be extremely skeptical if Navstan is fully manned at the moment. I don't believe it.
But they're also claiming that they're targeting Lincoln ship, but I don't know. It's just it's pro-IRGC channels.
We'll have to keep an eye on that. Trying to see Israeli military instructed civilians to remain in bomb shelters until further notice on Saturday amid waves of Iranian ballistic missile attacks. Quote, you must remain in a protected area until an official notice is given, the Army said, adding that air defense systems were detecting and intercepting threats. That's from Iran International.
But also, I wanted to say something. Like someone was claiming that the Iranians are not happy with the strikes. But for instance, there was this video of like of a U.S. jet or an Israeli jet above Iran, and they actually were cheering. So it doesn't mean that everybody is not happy or not happy. But I mean, there's also people happy basically that it's happening, because especially a lot of people that lost their lives in the protests and their family members, they were actually waiting for this to happen. But of course, the people that are on the other side of supporting the Iranian government, they are not happy with it.
The Russians have made a
Just-
comment about Trump saying this is the peace president. So the Russians are now a little bit pissed.
I just wanna pinpoint something about what Vladimir said. You can have that, but you can also have the impact on the populace that is against the regime, but the impact of the war is different. The moment you start having rockets and strikes inside of your area, near your houses, near the area where you live, it impacts you indirectly if you want it or you don't want it. And that's the point that I think other people like Dana were bringing up, and other people, independently of political affiliation. I don't want to go into that, but from someone who's on the ground, I think like also people that are in Israel on the space, or other people, those people too have the same point. We're getting struck. Like those people are sitting inside of bunkers. They are getting hit. We are discussing the high military implication. Now you have people also in the UAE, in Qatar, in Kuwait, in Bahrain, people that have never seen war recently and that moved to those safe havens that are being impacted too. The entire region is going ablaze. I think no one is happy with the fact that it's a war. We just need to analyze it from a higher perspective, which is the military perspective.
I think the Iranians have already had, just as it's epic victory for the U.S., the Iranians very originally True Promise 4. So Operation True Promise 4 is Iran's retaliation.
So one of the intercepted missiles just fell in Syria, in Daraa area on the Israeli border.
Can I jump in, since I've had my hand in for a while and I'm Iranian and I have
Go ahead, Johnny.
in touch with the Iranians of the country? Thank you. So, right. So as Vladimir pointed out, there Iranians right now, and we are hearing from them live. I'm getting messages. There are Farsi spaces. We're all elated that this is happening. Nothing is worse than the presence and the continuation of the Islamic regime. But moving on, here's what I really wanted to say. It's important that when we talk about Iran and the consequences, that we at least produce evidence. On Mario's space, and on your space, Sitra, just 10 hours ago, I called it. I said, well, the statement that was put out by Trump 10 hours ago was mirroring that of George Bush's speech right before they struck Baghdad. And it happened. Again, I'm telling you this with evidence. The reason Iranians are happy with this is because they know the direction in which they're going. And the direction was the one that was set forward by the Crown Prince Reza Pahlavi. When I say that the overwhelming majority of Iranians support this, and there is a transition government already participating to take over the government, we Iranians say this with evidence. So I wanted you to keep this in mind. We're not looking at civil war, chaos this, chaos this. It's just like during the 12-day war. It was reported by the U.S. government, mainstream media, and human rights organizations that in all 31 provinces, Iranians erupted and poured out in the streets, and there was no this province turning against this province, this group wanting separation. None of that happened during the 12-day war. It did not happen in the period between the 12-day war and now, and it's not going to happen now. The path, and one more thing before I end this. Donald Trump's speech today mirrors some parts of it about the direction in which Iran will be going, mirrors the statements that is being put out by the Crown Prince Reza Pahlavi. This is not coincidence, this is coordinated. Thank you for listening.
We're getting.
Can I just say that nobody's in touch with Iranians inside the country? I know this for sure because there's absolutely no internet, and all of us are trying to contact people inside, and none of us have been successful. And nobody speaks for all Iranians. I don't speak for all Iranians, and nobody else speaks for Iranians, and nobody knows what most Iranians think because there's never been a proper poll. So anybody that claims that they speak on behalf of Iranians and they speak on behalf of even majority of Iranians, really you should regard that with extreme.
So I need.
Breaking another wave of sirens in Kuwait right now.
And I think Ajan News is reporting that the Kuwaiti civil aviation has temporarily closed their airspace. So back to back there, Hazem. I think that the Bahrain though, I think there's only was that one explosion. It's just getting recirculated like crazy.
I got a confirmation from someone in the UAE. So in Dubai, in Abu Dhabi, there is near Zayed Airport. There was a couple of interception and a loud bang in the outside area. So it didn't hit anything that is close to where the hits. So I think they were intercepted above the UAE in Abu Dhabi, and the sound that we're hearing are from interceptors or the remains of the missiles.
Sorry, Citra, was I cut off or did I drop off the space? I don't know if you caught everything I said.
We heard you, and then we jumped in, and then now we had we're just sharing the news after Donna. But I don't want to go this back and forth. The regime change, we're not there yet. There's a lot of news going in. You said your point, Donna said your point, so now we corrected this. I don't want to get right now in that because there's a lot of going on inside of it. I mean, not only in Iran or Israel, just in the region as a whole. This is a major regional war right now.
Sichak, are you surprised they didn't close down the airspace for these other locations in the Gulf? Do you think because people were leaving with private jets? Because I'm very surprised they had already over an hour to shut down these air bases.
So I mean, again, I think people look when we're dealing with this aspect, right? And we were doing this before. People were putting a lot of emphasis on the embassies. I mean, we did see some of that in the airspace closures, and a lot of times you're not going to get those warnings. You're not, and so that's kind of the situation that we're in. And now we're seeing a lot of these countries close their airspace. So I'm trying to see. I think the strike in Bahrain is just that one explosion. So there's one missile that went through. I think that's really for the fundamentally it. And I think it's just getting recirculated because I'm just interested to see how much it is. So, yeah, that's it. We're trying to get confirmation if Kuwait airspace has been closed as well. And I know, James, you kind of we're going to have glitches on this.
So, Sitrap, I want to make a quick point. Every time a city in the Gulf getting hit, you're saying that all bets are off, regime change was mentioned. I have a very different theory than this. For Iran to hit, let's say, Abu Dhabi from Bandar Abbas, they need a very short-range missile. I wonder if they have the long-range missile capabilities we think they have, or they're able to rebuild enough under all this pressure over the past 6 months. Maybe, just maybe, they do not have enough that can reach Israel, and now they need to resort to hitting American interests within short-range.
Sorry, Hazem, that's important. We're starting to hear reports of explosions or interceptor getting up in Riyadh in Saudi Arabia. That's big. The reports are coming through multiple sources and multiple medias. We're not saying there is an explosion in Riyadh, but we're saying that there is a probability.
Riyadh, right? You just broke in with that with the Riyadh?
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah, that's crazy. Yeah. Wow, Riyadh.
Regarding these strikes directed at Israel, I remember reading an article from JINSA about how they were able to intercept half of the incoming missiles from the Islamic Republic, but with respect to the other half, they actually needed assistance from the Americans. I don't remember if it was about the Patriot missiles, but nonetheless, they needed assistance from the Americans. At this point, with this incredible military presence in proximity, I think perhaps now they're comfortable enough. The Israelis, I'm daring to speak on behalf of them. Someone can correct me. Again, this is just my guess. They feel safe enough to now, together with the United States, conduct these military strikes. So perhaps, and this goes to what Hazem was saying earlier, the Islamic Republic either does not have the capacity to retaliate, and they really did not have effective capability to hit Israel even back then. They probably don't have it either. now. I don't know what's this situation with the Arab countries in the Persian Gulf, but with respect to Israel, I hope that they're able to completely defend themselves against the incoming strikes from the Islamic Republic.
Just a small point.
So we're saying more strikes. Israel is leading strikes against in Iraq against groups. So that's going on also currently. James, sorry, I jumped in. Go ahead.
I was going to say the same thing, but also add to that the Houthis have announced that they will join the war, like officially.
Yeah. We did see that.
I'm seeing another
I know, Gregory, you've been waving your hand up.
Missile site up in smoke. So there's another Tabriz missile site up in smoke. There's images and video. I'll retweet that right now. And there is, what is this? So somebody posted a video allegedly of Israeli Navy submerging and moving pretty fast. This OSINT account. I don't know if
I would be.
Yeah.
I would be very skeptical of that simply because the internet has been cut and it's hard.
No, in Israel. Out of Israel. There's video.
Out of Israel. Okay.
Yeah.
The IDF is confirming that all incoming missiles are coming from Iran territory.
So I think so. Okay, so I'm going to go to Gregory. I'm just being because again of how the algorithm is coming. I'm wondering again if these are coordinated or not, or two is there's clearly the focus I think is more in Israel. I think the way that we can have a better understanding, which I'm a little bit surprised we haven't received a report, is like. If you remember the 12-day war, there were large salvos of ballistic missiles. We haven't seen that yet. Actually, wait. Okay, I'm not going to shut up because I'm not 100% sure. Okay, so that's the thing that we're at.
Sorry, can I just say in terms of targeting the regional countries, that's what Iranian regime always said, that if there was a strike against it, it will definitely target American bases in the region. So it's no surprising that there is concentrating on doing that with the aim of influencing the oil price and that ordinary Americans. So that was always
100% agree. This is the risk with regime change. All bets are off. But I agree with you, Don, 100%. That's what we're going to see. What I'm trying to figure out if this is a coordinated or not. So that's the only thing. Gregory, go. I know you've been waiting, so go ahead, Gregory.
Yeah, what I wanted to mention, everyone kind of mentioned a little bit of it, but I also wanted to bring in the fact that there's a bunch of commercial planes right now off the coast of like the UAE and other parts of the Gulf states that didn't close their airspace yet, that didn't close their airports yet, that are just circling. And you can even see this on like Flight Radar 24, where they're just circling because they're not going to land in an airport that's about to be, bombed. So it's very interesting to see what they're going to do with these commercial planes, because there's also this sense that a lot of people are going to be trapped here, and U.S. citizens are going to be trapped here. So if this is going to be a multi-day and eventually maybe even a multi-week operation, the U.S. is going to have to do something with its U.S. citizens in these states, and it's going to be very interesting to watch. So it's something that people should look at. That's what I wanted to bring.
Actually, Nelson,
quick breaking reports of 6 separate strikes on PMF in Iraq.
Yeah. Mark, I have to ask you, you've been patiently waiting. Have you heard anything on the Iran? One of the aspects that was supposed to be targeted was Iran's nuclear facility that's been reported by Fox News and other Western U.S. agencies. Have you seen anything that because we're all focusing on one thing, but have you seen anything about the Iranian nuclear program specifically that's been hit? Have you seen anything from that angle?
Nothing. No. I mean, all the sites were hit and heavily damaged, we believe, in June of last year, and then as reported in the IAEA not secret report, but confidential report that major newspapers were reporting on yesterday. So that's February 27th now. Iran was not allowing inspections, probably had greatly diminished capabilities, but was still, standing up against the world, not allowing inspectors. And I think that when we see reports out about what's struck, it's not clear we're going to see any extra information that tells us more than we knew last year. It's just that they didn't allow inspectors, and the IAEA report said that it was entirely possible that up to a few hundred kilograms of moderate to highly enriched uranium escaped damage. And I've seen reports that said, look, this stuff could be used to start up special reactors to make highly radioactive isotopes that could be used in dirty bombs. Maybe. It's all kind of weird. So the question in my mind is, why did they stand up against the world for what's likely to be not very useful amounts of product? None of that is the direct answer to your question. I haven't seen any extra reports. I don't know if we're going to see it.
My last question for you: nuclear reactor in Bashir, the nuclear facility in Bashir, the plant. Could that be a target or no?
Almost unimaginable. We had a guest a few hours ago say something about it being a Russian reactor. I mean, it was a plant that the Germans were building for Iran. Then the Russians completed it decades later. There's a reactor there. I know that that civilian nuclear sites had an unprecedented involvement in the Ukraine war because Russia captured a nuclear plant from Ukraine. But other than that, aside from a lot of loud language about this, in general, there's almost nothing to be gained by either side from attacking or making a target out of civilian nuclear facilities. And I don't think there's been any statements from either side involving Bashir nuclear plant, except to say that nobody believes that Iran's enrichment program was actually for their civilian reactors, and Iran didn't really make any credible claims at all that their enrichment was for their reactor. So pretty much there's a carve out. That reactor has not been targeted and has not been involved in this conflict. I would not expect that to change, but I guess we'll watch.
No, thank you. Please stay with us, man. Again, anybody nuclear follow. Mark is the GOAT. I would say, again, James, I'm following it. The UK MTO has released statements related to basically the military conflict over there. So we're already seeing that's going to have broad-based implications for international maritime trade. I'll share it right now. It looks like there might be another wave of strikes going on currently in Western Iran and in Iraq. It's going to be hard at this moment to determine which one is Israel and which one is the U.S. So at this point, I think for these arguments' sakes, I know there was a kind of the plan of the initial wave. That, plans change as the conflict continues. But I think for this, we're just going to have to call it a combined strike by both U.S. and Israel. So we're seeing that in Iraq and in Iran. James, I think what is clear to me, at least at the moment, is that how the U.S. and Israel are analyzing and doing this is they're going to go big to end this once and for all. I think that is the objective, not only just regime change, but they're going to solve all the problems in the negotiations, the nuclear, the ballistic, and the proxy, it looks like.
Yeah, it's the final one. If we want to put a word on it, it would have been better than the name maybe that was given, but the final one. So that's the last time. You either get to a place where you agree on something or you're done. Is it the right strategy? Is this what should happen? Will this lead to the successful objective that wants to be achieved? That's a different question. Right now, what we're seeing is destruction all over the Middle East from both sides, and this seems to be a non-ending for the next couple of weeks, I assume, if not more. What's your opinion on that, Cetera? Okay. Talking about, we're getting information. Just a second, we got information. Breaking news, information about this explosions in Qatar, capital, in Doha, capital of Qatar. So that just popped up.
What just happened? Do you have any images or video?
Sorry about that because I glitched there, but I was about to say I supposed to get started. But I think we're also getting. Hold on, where was that quote? The Qatari one, and it's kind of interesting. Literally, we got this back to back. The Qatari Ministry of Defense, we will confirm that the security situation is stable and under complete control. And then shortly after that, were explosions to Qatar's capital, Doha. And then Reuters quoting an Iranian official, all U.S. bases and interests are within Iran's range. And then Iran targeted all U.S. bases and interests in the region. So the Tasnim is the Iranian media. So it does look like this is broad. The question that I have, again, this is initial, right? But compare to the amount of strikes that the U.S. and Israel did at the beginning wave, and look at this retaliation piece from Iran. It does. I mean, the one in Bahrain does not look like it was extensive retaliation, and we're talking about onesies or twosies right now. Not that large retaliation. I again, maybe it could be that they're trying to gather the forces to do it. Maybe some of the strikes was happening was somewhat successful. But yeah, I see your hand up. Are you hearing anything in Israel? How many missiles were actually launched from Iran against Israel? Like an actual number?
I don't have the actual number, but I do have breaking news, which is IDF have allowed to publish that it has started to call on reserve 70,000 people. So my guess, this is to deter Hezbollah from taking any action.
By the way, have you guys had confirmation the U.S. is using Pakistani airspace along with its air bases? Somebody did a thread on this. I have it here. It says.
I think this is leveraging Israel, Iran, like through Israel, through Syria, through Iraq to Iran, and then through the maritime routes. I wouldn't necessarily look at this from the Pakistani perspective.
Just a second, Stubbs. Another hit in Bahrain. Another strike inside of Bahrain.
There's footage now being shared of a Patriot interceptor being launched against another Iranian ballistic missile over Abu Dhabi as we speak, the UAE.
There was Abu Dhabi, and then also an Israeli official reported that prominent regime officials have also been injured inside Iran.
And I think that's what we're going to look at. But what I would say is, I wouldn't be surprised, Jane, is because Iran is conducting these strikes, now the Gulf countries who restricted their airspace might enable it. Unless there was a secret agreement that they announced it. Publicly, they said they wouldn't. But now I wouldn't be surprised if this is what the U.S. use their airspace.
The Israelis are calling up 50,000 reservists for border defense right now.
Just the point. Burj Khalifa has been emptied.
And we heard earlier from your previous guest talking about religious holidays. Let's keep in mind that Monday is Purim. Going back to the book of Esther, it was Israel being delivered from defeat from the Persian Empire. And it's very important that President Trump said tonight he warned there could be casualties in this ongoing operation, which he called massive and ongoing. And when you were talking to Trey, John, I saw videos posted what appeared to be Tomahawk cruise missiles flying over Iraq. Why can you see the Tomahawk cruise missiles? It's a subsonic munition likely fired from the USS Gerald R. Ford strike group. While many people called the Ford's deployment to the Eastern Mediterranean defensive because of its proximity to Israel, while that is accurate with its ballistic missile defense capability aboard her destroyer escorts, Ford and those destroyers can launch strikes on Tehran. In fact, it's actually closer. Ford is closer to Tehran in the Eastern Mediterranean than the USS Abraham Lincoln strike group is in the Arabian Sea. So it's important to note that. And I'll just read from part of President Trump's address. He said that
launched the monstrous October 7th attacks on Israel, slaughtering more than 1,000 innocent people, including 46 Americans, while taking 12 of our citizens hostage. It was brutal, something like the world has never seen before. Iran is the world's #1 state sponsor of terror, and just recently killed tens of thousands of its own citizens on the street as they protested. It has always been the policy of the United States, in particular, my administration, that this terrorist regime can never have a nuclear weapon. I'll say it again, they can never have a nuclear weapon. That is why in Operation Midnight Hammer last June, we obliterated the regime's nuclear program at Fordow, Natanz, and Isfahan. After that attack, we warned them.
And John, President Trump went on to say we are going to destroy Iran's missiles and raise their missile industry to the ground. It will be totally obliterated. We're going to annihilate their Navy. It's notable.
Our next guest is Republican Rick Heitner, running for governor in Illinois. She has created many businesses in Illinois, including J.J. Pepper's
military's inventory that can drop those massive 30,000-pound bunker-busting bombs. Until we received confirmation from the U.S. military, perhaps the president himself, it does not appear that those were used this time, at least in this initial phase. In fact, no B-1 and B-52 bombers, which don't carry the bunker busters but can deliver cruise missiles. We see no evidence that B-1 B-52 bombers were deployed in the region. We did see those fifth generation F-22 stealth fighter jets arrive in Israel. We have seen appear to be Tomahawk cruise missiles flying across Iraq, which would most likely be launched from the Mediterranean into targets into Tehran. That appears to be the case, Sean. And let's recall why we are at this moment. President Trump appears to take that message straight in South Florida. He's in water right now. I'm coming from a trip to Texas earlier yesterday. He says that he's not hearing to hear from the Iranians. Talks slowed down just a few days ago. His negotiating team, Steve Witkoff and his son-in-law Jared Kushner, were in Geneva with indirect talks, some likely face-to-face with the Iranians. And the talks went nowhere. You heard some positives from Steve Witkoff, but officials say most of the U.S. team did not feel that they got what they wanted out of these talks. And that's why we heard from President Trump earlier today to our own Peter Doocy. When Doocy asked him about the potential for strikes, he says, I don't want to use the military, but sometimes you have to, words to that effect. And when a reporter asked him earlier, have you made a decision to strike? It was notable, President Trump's answer. He said, if I tell you that, it'll be the scoop of the century. He didn't say he hadn't made up his mind. He didn't say he was still contemplating. He said it made it sound like he had already made up his mind to strike, and clearly that appears to be the case. And just to put a fine point on it, how rare it is for the U.S. military major combat operations, which President Trump says are going to be massive and ongoing, to launch these during the day, during the holy month of Ramadan. And again, we also have the Jewish holiday of Purim coming up on Monday, which is a celebration of defeating ancient Persia, which of course is modern day Iran. But President Trump saying that this will be a massive and ongoing operation, and also a warning to American citizens, Sean. This was very notable in his address. The Americans might take casualties during this operation.
It's fascinating, and it's going to be fascinating to learn why they decided to start these attacks when they did. Interesting to know whether they had some inside information about the movements of the Ayatollah. Who knows? But this is a major turning point in world history, and our viewers are watching it unfold with us live. Thanks very much, Lucas Tomlinson, reporting live. Our Jennifer Griffin has been working her sources in Washington, and she has some new information for us. Jennifer.
John, I've just received a list of some of the early targets that have been attacked inside Iran. Let me read to you from that. There have been attacks on the Iranian parliament, the National Supreme Council, the Ministry of Intelligence, the Iranian Atomic Energy Agency, and also cyber attacks on news agencies such as IRNA. So this is very significant because it's not just the residence of the Ayatollah Khamenei that was struck and his offices, a complex of offices, which we've seen videos online with Iranians cheering as that complex was hit. But what is very significant is listening to President Trump as he outlined the justification for why the U.S. is involved in these strikes, what you could call a war against Iran. And he goes all the way back to 1979 when 66 Americans were taken hostage in the U.S. Embassy when students there stormed the embassy and held them for a year at the end of the Carter administration. That was when Ayatollah Khamenei came back to Iran and was the beginning of the Iranian Revolution, which has been in place for the last 47 years. Also, the president laying out the Marine barracks bombing in 1983 in Lebanon that saw 241 Americans killed in that strike. That goes back to 1983. He called Iran the #1 state sponsor of terror. And then he also had a message to the Iranian people. He said after the bombing is done, and he urged them to stay inside during this period of the coming days as this massive bombing campaign takes place. But afterwards, he urged them to seize this moment and when we are finished, he said, take over your government, seize. He said, the hour of your freedom is now. So he had a message for the people of Iran. It's clear that the U.S. and Israel are carrying out dozens of strikes involving tomahawks, as Lucas has described, tomahawk missiles, standoff weapons, as well as airstrikes across Tehran, as well as at nuclear sites and at ballistic missile sites across Iran. I think it's significant to remind our viewers that back in June, the Iranian Navy was virtually untouched in those strikes. When the U.S. sent the B-2 bombers, it was really focused on the 3 nuclear sites at Fordo, Natanz, and Isfahan. But the Iranian Navy can cause a lot of damage to not only to shipping lanes with the oil that's shipped, a fifth of the world's oil is shipped through the Strait of Hormuz every day. One of the reasons that the president said that the U.S. is involved in this war against Iran is because Iran, through its proxies, the Houthis, had been disrupting shipping for so long and been terrorizing ships and threatening to close the Strait of Hormuz. But right across from Iran, it's just 21 miles at the narrowest point across the Strait of Hormuz to the other side, and the U.S. has 3 very large military bases in the Gulf. The home of the 5th Fleet, the U.S. Navy's 5th Fleet, is in Bahrain. You have also in Qatar Al Udeid Air Base, as well as in the UAE Al Dhafra. We understand that there are sirens taking place right now in Qatar. The U.S. Embassy there has urged Americans to shelter in place, not to come out of their homes. And we're hearing that there are a potential missile strike targeting Qatar. That's why you would be hearing those sirens. And again, it's very close.
It's a simple
to Iran, and Iran has hundreds, if not thousands, of missiles that can cause a lot of damage to those bases and to American targets in those countries.
was born
Jennifer, and these will be available to you as well. But Reuters is reporting that the name of this operation, according to the Pentagon, is Epic Fury.
Bodyguard was never abstract. He used to say that spiritual life begins from the ground up.
Also, we're getting word from the Associated Press that the first strike was launched against the compound of Iran's Supreme Leader, Ayatollah Khamenei. I've been wondering, as have our other correspondents, about the daytime nature of this attack. We'd expected if there were going to be kinetic action that it would take place at night. But this was a daytime attack that began around 10 in the morning in Tehran. And apparently the first target was the compound belonging to the Ayatollah.
So that's what he was trying to do with his artistic work, to draw the viewer beyond themselves to ecstatic participation in the arts and the aesthetic beauty.
The Ayatollah was just arriving at his compound then, and maybe that's why they decided
of his state, which is love,
that was perhaps the first of the strikes.
John, based on conversations that I've had with officials over recent weeks, the targets and the timing of these strikes, this has been planned for some time, and I think we're talking about this many pieces that have to be coordinated between 2 countries, as well as the naval, the air assets involved in the this is like conducting an orchestra. So I don't know that there would be a trigger such as an individual, but I do believe that they targeted Ayatollah Khamenei's compound, obviously for a reason. Symbolically, that is where you would strike if you wanted to decapitate the regime. And I think it's significant that it was during the day, because remember, during Ramadan, they would be fasting, people might be at home. And so if you were expecting the Ayatollah to be in his residence. Ramadan would be a pretty good time to expect that he would be home fasting. But it's also significant when you
spiritual
look at
presence
the
was like
strikes
a mirror,
against the parliament,
reflecting people
against
to
the National
themselves
Security
and
Council,
revealing
against
the root of their
IRGC
seeking and
targets, the
unhappiness.
Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps. The president was
Adidar
very
teaches
clear
that the
that
anxiety
he had
that
a
drives all
message
human
for the
beings
Iranian
to look for
security
answers
forces.
and
And he
consolation
said that
in
if you
ordinary
lay down
life
your weapons,
or in spiritual
you will receive
things
total
is a
immunity.
voluntary but
Otherwise, he
habitual
promised them
activity in
certain
every
death.
moment,
He
which
was
Adidar
colorful in the
calls
language that he used,
self-contraction.
and as he laid out the case for why the U.S. is attacking Iran right now.
During his discourses,
Remember
Avatar
earlier in the
Adidar
week,
would often clench his
Secretary of
hand
State
into a
Marco
fist
Rubio met with
to
the Gang of
illustrate
Eight
the pain
and
and
laid
stress
out
of this
what in
self-contracting
essence
activity,
is this
which
operation.
creates the sense
We heard
of
from
separate self.
some of the Democrats who left
It is the
that
habitual
briefing
and unconscious
that
act of
expressed
identification
alarm.
with the mortal
Chuck
body and
Schumer,
mind.
the majority leader, came out and spoke to the cameras. We did not hear from some of the Republican leadership after that briefing, but it was clear that the administration was going through what is required in terms of alerting Congress, and that meeting between Secretary of State Rubio and the Gang of Eight really served that purpose. We expected to hear more from the president during the State of the Union, outlining to the American people why the U.S. might find itself in a war with Iran and strike Iran. But he really had just a few lines in the State of the Union talking about Iran and its nuclear weapon, and saying that it would not get a nuclear weapon on his watch. That is something he repeated tonight as well, John.
The Associated Press, Jennifer, is reporting that it's not immediately clear whether the 86-year-old Ayatollah Khamenei was in his offices at the time of the strike, but we are told that his offices were the first target of this joint Israeli-U.S. attack. So, again, history is in the making. The world could look very different a few days or weeks from now. But this massive attack has begun. One of the questions, Jennifer, and perhaps you have an answer to this from your long experience in Washington, but are the Iranian people going to be able to get the message? For instance, the 8-minute message that the president delivered on Truth Social. We know that there have been something like 10,000 Skylink terminals smuggled into Iran by the CIA and other U.S. operatives. Are they going to be able to get the word that this is actually unfolding, and that the president calls this their chance to take back their country?
Well, it's a really good question, John, because as we were discussing before, Voice of America is sort of a shell of its former self. They fired a lot of people. They downgraded a lot of their language services. And that would normally be how you would broadcast a message like this in Farsi to the Iranian people. Right now, I would expect that there has been a massive sort of cyber outage to blind the regime, and so you may not have internet. You unlikely would have internet right now in Tehran. But as you mentioned, there are those Starlink terminals that were used during the protests in December and January to keep the protesters connected to the world, knowing what was going on. So it's likely that that they would have received, if those are up and running, and they do tend to work, and even in these dire circumstances because they're satellite based, then there is a possibility that this message is getting through, but it would need also to be translated into Farsi to have a broad reach within Iran.
All right, Jennifer Griffin. Jennifer, thank you. We're getting reports that, according to the Associated Press, the Houthis, who are obviously a proxy of the Iranians, the Houthi rebels are saying that they are going to resume attacks on shipping in the Red Sea corridor. Whether that's bluff or whether it's actual fact is yet to be determined, but one can imagine that all of the firepower of the United States and the Israelis available there in that region, the Houthis are going to pay a high price if they begin trying to attack shipping in the Red Sea once again. Let's check in once again with, is it our Lucas Tomlinson that we're going to, control room? All right, Lucas Tomlinson, has some updated information for us. And again, you're watching history unfold.
U.S. personnel
the
in the
United States and the Israelis try to take out, well, not only the Iranian military, but essentially the Iranian government as well. Lucas.
John, I just want to pick up where you left off with the Houthis now vowing to launch strikes against Israel and shut down Red Sea shipping. Recall early in President Trump's return to the White House, he launched Operation Rough Rider. The USS Harry S. Truman strike group bombed the Houthis for 50 days, and there was no regime change. The Houthis are still there. It caused massive damage, and clearly we've recent days heard about 2 American F-16 pilots who narrowly missed getting shot down from surface air missiles from the Houthis. Just talking about some of this, the warning of what our forces are up against when it comes to not just the Houthis, but of course in Iran. You and Jennifer mentioned the Ayatollah Khamenei. It's notable, John. He has been in power since 1989. He's
I'm doing a click device.
The Iranian parliament.
Oh, really? Really?
Officer Kitover here at Stanford's Hoover Institution. John, thank you very much for your insights.
Thanks.
And if you're just waking up, major combat operations between the U.S. and Israel launching these combined strikes in Iran. We have sirens ringing across Israel from Jerusalem to Tel Aviv. Joining us on the phone is Darren Gobb, Lieutenant Colonel of the U.S. Army and co-founder of Restore Liberty. And Colonel, what do you make of what we have learned so far of these joint strikes?
The anger so far over the last 3 hours or so that I've been with you, I've seen very few surprises when it comes from a
U.S. personnel in the region. Even so, and I do not
reduce, degrade, and potentially try to completely destroy any air defense and become air dominant. And that's not only their ability to defend their nation, but their ability to launch systems, missiles, and other things.
Not making this, not for now. We're doing this for.
So that seems to be working apace. I'm also not surprised by the attack directly on Iranian leadership by Israel, because you can guarantee that
all of our heroes in harm's way.
We're helping them identify where they are, and so they're keeping that on an internal loop with Israel itself. So again, very, very few surprises so far.
All of the police.
People are probably going to wake up to and be surprised by the most is the fact that we did do this during the daytime. But this is a case of what I think. There may be some conditions out there that are critical that it's trying to.
Yeah.
But in the end, when you change your patterns, you make things better for the military in the first place. So most have been used to us attacking.
Take over your government. It will be
asleep, a fairly typical tactic. But to change that pattern up to attack during the daytime gives a level of surprise that I can guarantee the Iranians.
Now you have a president who is giving you.
Especially during Ramadan, that can be very effective as well. So we've got a few days to see how this goes. I'm watching very closely to see how the Iranians respond and whether or not they're going to maintain the momentum they began with, because the real change in Iran belongs to them. And on the American side, go back to what strategic planners like myself did in the military all the time.
U.S. personnel in the region.
Answer the question or deal with the phrase that says begin with the end in mind. So know what the end is that you're trying to get to and how you're going to get there the best you can, because we're very good at military operations, but we've always been challenged over the years about what happens afterwards, and we don't want to create a condition where it's worse now than it was before. I don't see that happening, but that is a significant challenge that I think it's going to take a while to develop and for us to be able to understand.
And that's a great point that you raised, Colonel Gobb, because for those of us that can recall the invasion of Iraq in 2003.
Not for now. We're doing this for the future. And it is a noble mission.
Tell me how this ends. That, of course, is the biggest question this morning as we wake up to see these major
protect all of our heroes in harm's way.
Telling Fox News that these airstrikes will last not hours, but days. And you have been involved in combat planning and strikes such as this. Talk to me a little bit about what you make of our positioning of course, the Abraham Lincoln in the Arabian Sea and the USS Freeland in the Eastern Mediterranean. Lucas Thompson was talking a little bit about the proximity the ford in the Mediterranean being closer to Tehran. Many thought that was perhaps to be a shield, if you will, for Israel, to use our capabilities, the Aegis technology to protect Israel from strikes, such as the ones that Iran has begun launching at not only Israel, but also multiple countries, the U.S. Fifth Fleet headquarters in Bahrain. Talk to me about the positioning of this and what you believe may be the plan behind what will be days of strikes.
Well, first of all, with the Eastern Mediterranean, yes, it is as already depicted closer to Tehran than where other forces are already. So they're going to naturally use those for specifically things like the Tomahawk missiles. But that doesn't mean that that fleet in the Eastern Mediterranean can't also be used for defensive measures on Israel. So they're capable of doing both. Either way, the geography of Iran and in the waters that are surrounding Iran or near them dictates really where you're going to put a naval fleet of that size in the first place, because an aircraft carrier strike group is a significantly sized force that needs a lot of space on the water to be able to maneuver and do all these operations, while also being able to defend itself if necessary. So I think those are well positioned, and you're going to continue to see those be the primary means by which we're going to reach out and into Iran for the days to follow. It also tells us that this operation has been in planning phases for quite some time, and inherently we know this to be true, but the logistics that make something like this possible, from refueling to rearming and everything that comes down to resupplying military forces on the move, means that this has been something that projected and they knew they were probably most likely to have to act on for months now. But the array of forces here too is to alleviate one concern that I know some people are going to bring up. This is going to be an air and naval dominated operation. And you're not going to see, from my perspective, you're not going to see American land forces inside Iran taking part in this. What you're going to hope and pray for is that the Iranian people can solve their own problem inside.
Congressman John Kitover, we're here in Bloomington, Illinois.
And Colonel, in the minute or so I've got left, talk to me about the targets. Obviously,
U.S. personnel in the region.
Across Iran,
even so, and I do not make this statement lightly, this not to protect all of our...
and Isfahan and Natanz, but it appears the early targets were also in the capital in Tehran. We're learning that they attacked the Iranian parliament, the National Supreme Council, the Ministry of Intelligence, the Iranian Atomic Agency, as well as the IRNA, the news service there. What do you make of the targeting?
So far, not surprised. And the reason why that is you're going to make sure that you take out command and control first, because when you've got fully led militaries in nations like Iran that need a lot of overhead leadership, if you take out that leadership, most of them are not going to know what to do or how to respond. And so command and control comes down to not only the systems, radars, cyber, all of that, it's the people that can direct people to direct their military to take action in some form or other. If you take out both of those, by and large, you've removed Iran's capabilities to respond. And that's a positive thing. That's exactly what I would expect to have happen. And as a result of that, then we can expand beyond into ballistic missiles, anything left on the nuclear side as well, and continue to degrade all of that to the point where the Iranian people are actually free to do what they have to do.
Colonel Darren Gobb, thank you for your insight.
Thanks, Chris.
This is a Fox News report.
The monstrous October 7th attacks on Israel, slaughtering more than 1,000 innocent people, including 46 Americans, while taking 12 of our citizens hostage. It was brutal, something like the world has never seen before. Iran is the world's #1 state sponsor of terror, and just recently killed tens of thousands of its own citizens on the street as they protested. It has always been the policy of the United States, in particular, my administration, that this terrorist regime can never have a nuclear weapon. I'll say it again, they can never have a nuclear weapon. That is why in Operation Midnight Hammer last June, we obliterated the regime's nuclear program at Fordow, Natanz, and Isfahan. After that attack, we warned them.
This is a Fox News Alert. I'm Griff Jenkins live in New York. As you heard the president there a short time ago announcing the U.S. and Israel against Iran, with the first apparent strike happening near the offices of Supreme Leader Ayatollah Khamenei. It's not immediately clear if the 86-year-old Khamenei was in his offices at the time of the strike. President Trump adding that the strikes began, telling the people of Iran that the moment for freedom is now.
The United States military began major combat operations in Iran. Our objective is to defend the American people by eliminating imminent threats from the Iranian regime, a vicious group of very hard, terrible people. Its menacing activities directly endanger the United States, our troops, our bases overseas, and our allies throughout the world. For 47 years, the Iranian regime has chanted death to America and waged an unending campaign of bloodshed and mass murder, targeting the United States, our troops, and the innocent people in many, many countries. Among the regime's very first acts was to back a violent takeover of the U.S. Embassy in Tehran, holding dozens of American hostages for 444 days.
And at this hour, Iran retaliating, targeting several U.S. bases around the Middle East, including in Bahrain, the UAE, Saudi Arabia, and Qatar. Air sirens also sounding in Israel overnight. Let's bring in Fox News Chief Senior Foreign Correspondent Trey Yingst. Good morning, Trey. What can you tell us?
Yeah, Griff, we are following the latest information from the Middle East. Israel remains under Iranian ballistic missile attack at this hour. Alerts are coming in across the country. Earlier, sirens were sounding here in Tel Aviv. And we understand, according to the military, most of this incoming fire was intercepted by Israel's air defense systems. The Americans and the Israelis are still striking Iran in a campaign that is expected to last for several days, targeting not just ballistic missile launching positions or command and control centers, but reports indicate government buildings and significant government infrastructure belonging to the Iranian regime. One person on our team just got out of a briefing with the Israeli military. I'm going to give you the latest information as we're getting it in just now, Griff. The Israelis plan to call up 70,000 reservists over the next several days, understanding that this conflict with Iran is expected to last for many days. Many of these reservists will be manning air defense systems as this incoming ballistic missile fire is expected to continue from Iran and could expand to regional proxies like Hezbollah in southern Lebanon or the Houthis in Yemen. According to a military official here in Israel, dozens of strikes were carried out this morning alone. Forces are now deployed across Israel to man those air defense systems. And coordination and cooperation, according to this military official, is something that's never been seen before, operating at the highest level with American counterparts. Reports are coming in from wire services that many IRGC commanders and political officials were targeted in these strikes. Again, these are initial reports, but it gives you an indication that this is not a limited operation going after the Iranians. This is certainly one of the larger options that the Americans and the Israelis had to go after the Iranian regime. In the days ahead, we can expect Iran to continue responding. They are already targeting U.S. forces in places like Bahrain. Air defense systems are active in the Gulf. Reports of possible strikes even in countries other than Bahrain, like Saudi Arabia, for example. And so there's going to be a lot of moving parts here. Our Pentagon team is tracking what the Americans are doing to stage in the days ahead and how this campaign is going to continue. But we heard overnight from President Trump himself, who said this is a massive and ongoing operation. President Trump gave the Iranians an olive branch, an opportunity for diplomacy to get rid of their nuclear program, to limit their ballistic missile program, and to end support of regional proxies. They refused to do so, and thus this operation was launched. Again, the latest information, Griff, from Israel. There are alerts coming in at this hour from across the region, and we understand, again, right now, as we are speaking, that in the northern city of Haifa, as far south as the city of Beersheba in the Negev Desert, And also in central Israel, including the city of Jerusalem, there are alerts going out because the Iranians are doing what they can to respond to these ongoing American and Israeli strikes. Griff.
And Trey, as you mentioned, Iranian retaliation in multiple areas in the Middle East, just crossing the wires, we're learning that the UAE, United Arab Emirates, saying that this attack is a quote flagrant violation of national sovereignty and international law, and that the UAE reserves its full right to respond to this escalation. Talk to me, if you can, just a moment about how, as this operation begins, and as you noted, as we're told, this is likely to last days, not hours, how the region will respond to this.
There were a lot of options here for the Americans and the Israelis in terms of strikes against Iran. And while we work to confirm exactly who in Iran was targeted, amid many reports that are circulating, and what buildings were targeted, we are looking at the regional implications of this. And the fact that the Iranians are responding against regional countries means that there could be response from countries like the United Arab Emirates. There is close coordination, we understand, with the Americans and their counterparts across the region. And remember, there are U.S. planes, not just here in Israel, but in places like Jordan and other countries that have been used as staging grounds for American forces. Qatar, the Al Udeid base that normally houses around 10,000 U.S. soldiers. Right now, it's largely evacuated, but there are regional implications here. And given the fact that these strikes are going to continue, that coordination will continue as well. Remember, we have to step back here and look at the U.S. military buildup over the past 2 months. It is the largest, at least in terms of air power, since the 2003 invasion of Iraq. And just yesterday, the USS Gerald R. Ford, the world's largest aircraft carrier, arrived in the Eastern Mediterranean. And that is to help to protect the Israeli coast. But also, you have planes there that can run operations if needed. You also have the USS Abraham Lincoln Carrier Strike Group in the Arabian Sea. You have a number of U.S. destroyers across the region. And you have over-the-horizon capabilities for the Americans. And that's not to mention the Israeli Air Force that conducted a bombing campaign last summer against Iran that lasted for 12 days. But at the end of all of this, the man who will be able to decide how long this will go on for is President Trump. He has ordered this operation to destroy Iran's ability to threaten the region and to threaten American forces and to threaten Israel. And that operation is unfolding as we speak. This is now a regional war. There is no other way to put it. The Iranians are targeting not just Israel, but they are targeting other countries in the Gulf. And so the days ahead will be intense. Israelis will spend the days ahead in and out of bomb shelters. And as we reported to you at the top here, Griff, Israel 70,000 reservists because they understand they're going to have to man air defense systems for a number of days. And President Trump tonight, when he addressed not just the nation, but the world, Griff, he said there is a real possibility of American casualties in this war that is now erupting. But understanding that the diplomatic option was pursued and that the Iranians did not take that olive branch that was provided to them by the Americans, they had an off-ramp and they didn't take it. And now a war has erupted. The Americans and the Israelis are expected to inflict heavy blows on the Iranian regime. And given just how widespread these strikes are, this is, again, on the outer spectrum of the possible options for the Americans and the Israelis to respond. This could significantly weaken the Iranian regime, if not eventually collapse it. Griffin.
That is certainly a big question there, indeed, as we watch this unfold. Trey in Tel Aviv. Trey, stay safe. We'll check back in with you throughout the morning. Let's bring in now the Fox News chief national correspondent, Jennifer Griffin. And Jennifer, as we look at that map of our U.S. forces in and around Iran and these strikes beginning, you're reporting that this is a joint operation and that the targeting of Iran's leadership is actually being led by Israel. What can you tell us?
Well, I think it's really important to separate out which targets are being targeted by the American military versus the Israeli military. And I have a very well-placed source who told me that the Israelis are targeting Iran's leadership. They've targeted the supreme leader, Ali Khamenei, his compound. We've reported that, as well as the defense minister, as well as other top leaders, the head of the judiciary. Israel is saying that they believe they've been very successful and that they may have, in fact, killed many of those Iranian leaders. But the U.S. military is not involved in those strikes. The U.S. military is focusing on ballistic missile sites, military targets that pose an imminent threat. So there is a little bit of a divided responsibility here. And I think also perhaps the Israelis always have very good intelligence about the Iranian leadership, just like we saw in when they targeted Hezbollah and Hamas, but Hezbollah particularly in Lebanon. I think it's also important to point out, Griff, that the only U.S. bases that have not been targeted so far by Iranian missiles are in Oman. Oman, of course, was the foreign minister. Its foreign minister was trying to mediate a nuclear deal. He even flew to Washington after mediating in Geneva to try and appeal to Vice President J.D. Vance, suggesting that to give negotiations more time and to try and stop this attack, which, as Trey pointed out, is really turning into a regional conflict at this point, given the number of targets. I can also report that there were no casualties. We heard that there was a missile that landed, and we saw some video of a missile landing near the U.S. Navy's 5th Fleet headquarters in Bahrain, but I'm told there were no casualties, and in fact, that base is largely empty at this point. The target that was struck was an empty warehouse. So the U.S. military has been planning for this for some time, and they knew that the Iranians would immediately target the bases in UAE, Qatar, and Bahrain. And so they've been quietly drawing down from those bases, reorienting the warplanes and staff that are based there, but particularly the warplanes were moved, and the fuelers and the tankers were moved to other bases a safe distance away. But Iran has even fired missiles at the U.S. base in Saudi Arabia, and that's pretty unusual. Once Iran has fired those missiles at the U.S. allies in the region, then my understanding from talking to experts and military planners is that, and to diplomats, is that those countries then will consider themselves under attack, and in defense of their own population, they then will allow the U.S. to use their air bases, their airspace, and so that is something we expected to happen. But the Iranians are sort of playing into U.S. hands by targeting bases in Saudi, in Jordan, in other areas. Griff?
So much to unpack here, Jennifer, and you're right about those regional implications that Trey was reporting on, as we were seeing on the wires. The UAE now calling this a flagrant violation of international law, that they reserve the right to respond. But I want to ask you, you talked about Oman's foreign minister, Badr al-Busadi, who did that interview with CBS saying that the Iranians are now willing to go to zero enrichment, but it didn't seem to be enough. President Trump, in his announcement, talking about how he seeks peace, but he will not allow Iran to have a nuclear weapon. We expect President Trump to address the nation later, but in that message we got overnight, Jennifer, do you believe that the president laid out really the question that Americans are waking up to today, which is, why have we done this now?
Well, I think the president laid out very clearly in his initial Truth Social post the history of the relationship between Iran, the United States, and Israel since 1979. And he called Iran the world's #1 state sponsor of terrorism. And he's right. If you go back to 1979, in November of 1979, the Iranians took 66 Americans hostage for more than 444 days at the U.S. Embassy in Tehran at the start of the Iranian Revolution. And then in 1983, they killed more than 261 U.S. Marines and Navy officers in the Marine barracks bombing in Beirut. That was one of the largest terror attacks before 9/11. Then you can go on and on in terms of the IEDs and the EFPs, the explosively formed penetrators that maimed and wounded and killed American soldiers in Iraq. Those were Iranian weapons that were used by their proxies. So the president was very clear that before this operation started a few hours ago, there was some speculation as to what the menu of options the president would choose from when presented by CENTCOM Commander Admiral Brad Cooper, who was at the White House just 2 days ago. He had a choice. Whether he was going to simply target the nuclear sites again, was he going to target the leadership, the ballistic missile stores, which is very important to the Israelis because those missiles can reach not only U.S. bases in the region, but also Israel. They don't yet have an intercontinental ballistic missile that can reach the United States. But the president was very clear that they could soon and that this program needed to be halted along with the nuclear program. In his Truth Social post, it was clear that he was in favor of regime change, calling on the Iranian people after the bombing ends, which, as we've reported, is not going to be hours, but is going to be days, that he called on them to rise up and basically take back and seize their government and throw off the mantle of this oppressive leadership that has basically controlled with an iron fist the regime since 1979. So it's clear that the president took the broadest range of options, joined in this joint strike with the Israelis. And the Israelis are targeting in these initial strikes Iran's leadership, and they may in fact have killed them. So we will wait and see. We expect to hear from the president, as you mentioned, later this morning, and we'll get some battle damage assessment from U.S. Central Command as well as from the IDF.
Serendipity. Can you pause it for a second?
And report on one other target or two other that we've learned about in the recent hours. It appears that an Iranian naval headquarters down in Bandar Abbas and on Park Island, those were among the targets. And we have been mentioning how important it was for the U.S. military to target Iran's Navy from the get-go. That's something that did not happen last June. And that Navy is
Norman, did you see that Iran attacked Saudi Arabia?
Shipping
they attacked Riyadh.
Which is just 21 miles wide at its narrowest point. And those Navy vessels can also, the fast boats that Lucas Tomlinson was describing that swarm U.S. vessels in the region and untold, potential damage to their ships.
The countries they've attacked so far: Israel, Bahrain, UAE, Qatar, Kuwait, Saudi Arabia, and Jordan.
Based in the Northern Arabian Sea. We also understand that there have been some explosions in eastern Iran near the Pakistani border. That is significant because we've heard the president talk about the alliance now with Pakistan, and Pakistan certainly would have bases there that the U.S. might find useful for any sort of airstrikes in eastern Iran.
Chief National Security Correspondent Jennifer Griffin. Jennifer, great reporting. Thank you for that. We'll check back in with you throughout the morning. Joining us now, retired Navy SEAL Mike Sorelli. Good morning, Mike. As the nation wakes up to a major combat operation with strikes across Iran happening in a joint U.S.-Israeli operation, what are your thoughts? All right, we'll work to get retired Navy SEAL Mike Sorelli on the phone there. As you do that, and you're waking up right now, major combat operations have begun with multiple targets struck across Iran. We have live team coverage coming.
Go to Twitter and type in Saudi Arabia. Latest.
The Middle East, significantly with the USS Gerald Ford in the Eastern Mediterranean.
People are reporting explosions all over Riyadh.
In the Arabian Sea. All right, I believe we've got retired Navy SEAL Mike Sorelli on the line. Mike, as we're waking up to this major operation, the Pentagon has dubbed it Operation Epic Fury. What are your thoughts?
I forgot Qatar. Okay.
Well, good morning, guys. First off, my thoughts and prayers are with our brave soldiers and their families back here in the United States who are probably on edge for the safety of their people. But quite interesting what's going on right now. Let me give you a description of what I think is going on. Primary and up front, we want to establish air and sea dominance. It's interesting that Israel and what we're being told is striking the political leadership or military leadership. The U.S. is most likely focused, again, with the air dominance of something conducting what we call SEAD and VAD.
come in. If you look at this as a phase, we're opening the airspace and we're probably blunting Iran's missile capability. But what a huge concern here is the suppression of Iran's missile capability. They understand that our magazine depth, whether it's an Iron Dome, it's David's Sling, or even our air defense and strike capabilities, our magazine depth is only so much. So we've got to keep an eye. They're going to most likely hit us with their cheaper drones to erode at our magazine depth over the next few days. That's ultimately their goal, so that ballistic or cruise missiles can make it into Israel or strike our sea power, both in the Gulf and in the Med. Mike, you really hit on something I think is very significant and something that I think we're going to hear a lot about, and that is the Siad likely initial operation. That's the suppression and destruction of enemy air defenses. Talk to me a little bit about how those F-22 Raptors working in tandem with our elite F-35 jets likely played a role in getting in, mapping those air defenses of Iran, targeting them, and ultimately trying to disable them and take them out. Great question. So for the audience, a good way of thinking about this is the suppression of enemy air defense is the intent is to blind them and pin them down. You jam radars, you force the SAM crews to shut down, you disrupt their command links and keep defenses from effectively engaging our forces or striking Israel. The DEAD is the destruction. That's when we kill the system. You destroy the radars, their launcher vehicles, their command posts, and supporting power and communications so the threats stay down. That is the goal in this initial phase. Now, you mentioned the F-22, or the F-22s and F-35s. The F-22s are one of the most advanced, as well as the F-35, advanced fighter systems in the world. One of the, beyond air-to-air combat, one of the primary roles of the F-22 is almost thinking its job is to paint a yellow brick road for the fighters and the bombers coming behind them in order to strike military or political targets. So the F-22 from far or long-range distances can not only disrupt, also destroy their surface-to-air capabilities. And that's what we want to focus on in the next few hours. If we can completely shut down their ability to confront or combat our fighters and bombers, then we've paved that yellow brick road for what will be a sustained campaign until hopefully, according to the president's message to the people of Iran, they rise up. And Mike, some of the military guys I talk with describe this initial Siad operation is sort of kicking down the door, the initial kicking down of the door to lay and pave that road. We saw this similar in the operation, it seems, in Venezuela when we took Nicolas Maduro. So much, it was so successful that it appeared that really the missile defense of Venezuela, which is provided by Russian technology, which is similar, we believe, to what's in Iran, it was so successful that literally no shot essentially got sent by Venezuela against our forces.
Norman, look up West Baghdad. They also bombed Baghdad.
Are you kidding me?
Just came in. They just hit West Baghdad 3 minutes ago.
This is the end for them. This is what they wanted. They realize that it's finished.
Yeah, the list is went to Bahrain, Saudi Arabia, Qatar, UAE, Iraq, and Kuwait.
Their systems and their missile batteries to a point where they don't have much left. So once these initial phases in the Siad are complete, expect larger campaigns similar to what we saw in the shock and awe in the early days of the Iraq campaign in 2003. So this will continue. We will become more effective with our strikes in eroding their military nodes, their navy, and that is a big thing to keep in mind. So we don't want disruption to the maritime or shipping lanes. So expect that we're going to target the
U.S. personnel in the region. This not to protect all of our
Navy has a large mining capability. So that is going to be a key objective in the early days
peace.